Looks like I'm live. Let me just make sure everything is working. I have all the things going. Audio seems fine. Okay. Let me know if there's any issues so I can fix it. But yeah, I feel like it's been probably, what, 2 weeks since I streamed. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like I've been enjoying myself doing other things. Um, Not that I don't like streaming. I generally do very much enjoy streaming, but it's more so just I've been having fun doing other things and I've just kind of lost track of time. And, maybe I just have to iron it into my schedule that I'm going to do this a set and stone time. But yeah, I've been blessed with your presence. Did you mean presence that you spelled wrong? The metamorphosis was great. Yeah, it really is. It's one of I mean, if you're going to read one thing by Kafka and only one thing, that might be the thing to read. Um, Unfortunately, it doesn't get better than that. Um, well, I think the only thing that rivals the Metamorphosis, in my opinion, by Kafka is the Trial. But again, you like read his best thing. So that's the problem with reading his best thing. It's like everything else, you're like, this is really good, but it's just not as good as, you have dyslexia. I would say the same thing if I spelled presence.
July 5th, 18.
So this video is actually made by PBS. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully I don't get. I'm assuming since it's public broadcast, it shouldn't
1845.
get flagged, but who knows? Okay, the audio is
Yesterday,
not working. Let me go in my settings real quick. Okay, it's not muted anymore.
I came here to live.
Let me know if you're getting any. I don't have any warnings or anything. Sometimes videos like this made by like huge corporations, you get like in trouble for it, but it shouldn't be because it's literally publicly funded. But like I've had BBC flag me down before for copyright. It doesn't make sense.
On July 4th, 1845, Henry David Thoreau moved into a 10 by 15-foot house on the northern shore of Walden Pond. He had built most.
So the land that was given to him by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson really was his, I think his biggest inspiration. Perfectly depicts what society finds left in a man who fails to provide for his family. I don't even think it's necessarily just that. I think it's like, I mean, have you ever like, it's like when you have an old dog, like it feels like kind of a burden to have them and you still love them, but you just, they can't take care of themselves anymore. They can't do basic things without your help. And there's like this, it's just, I think it's more so mortality. I think it's more so, do people love us or do people love what we can do for them? And what happens when we're no longer a net benefit, but more of a burden to them? I mean, if you've ever had anyone get old in your family, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think that's more so what it's about instead of that. Because if it was just about that, then it would be the father, not the son. Um, because it would make more sense for the father to kind of have that theme. But
Of it himself, cutting down
no,
trees
it for
to make
sure
a
is really
post and
relatable.
beam frame, which friends helped him raise. He then attached siding from a shanty he had purchased from an Irish railroad worker, hauled up rocks from the pond for a chimney, and dug a root cellar.
So what he's describing here, I'll give a little context in case you're not familiar, but he's describing famously the cabin that Henry David Thoreau went to live in the book called Walden. Essentially, the book is Henry David Thoreau felt that there was more to this world than just the hustle bustle of everyday life of trying to keep up with the Joneses, of getting a career and working your way up and making money and doing all these things. And he thought it was missing a depth, a soul, a heart to it. And essentially, Walden is his kind of antidote to this everyday existence that we all live in, and rekindling this spirit and rekindling what it seems like we've lost from true life, from true sort of purpose and true sort of fulfillment. So he's describing how
He moved
he
in,
made the
bringing along
cabin.
his cane bed, green writing desk, a
You could still visit it too. I think I don't know if it's like a museum or like a trail, but you could still go and see it. I really want to go see it actually.
small table, and 3 chairs. One for solitude, he said, 2 for friendship, and 3 for society. Some people called it a lonely hut and a wooden inkstand. For Henry, it was home.
And there's something so interesting in this is because, you wouldn't think that retreating to solitude would give somebody such a marvelous experience, but in fact, it really was what made him understand what was really worth it. And there's this certain idea I feel like most people don't understand this, but when I say it, it's probably going to resonate with you, especially if you're here. But the less you do things for yourself, the less you appreciate them. So it's like back in the day when you had to read a book to gain information, you really like were doing something with it. It was your own creation, it was your own idea. Versus now you're kind of just spoon-fed the ideas. Versus now you're kind of just told what to say and told what to think, and it feels hollow, it feels empty. Think of speaking to somebody and just think of somebody that's like completely programmed, completely their script is what's been handed to them. Does it feel like they actually believe that, or does it feel like they're just repeating what they've been told? And I always feel that little gap. I always feel that little bit of uncertainty, and that's why they're relying on the narrative. That's why they're relying on the thing. It's because they don't have the courage to do things for themselves. And that's essentially what we need to start finding in life is doing things for ourselves, doing things for the sake of doing them, doing some things and enjoying them, doing things and being purposeful with them, and understanding that it's not about the amount of things we have, it's how we use the things that we have.
My dwelling was small, and I could hardly entertain an echo in it. It was kitchen, chamber, parlor, and keeping room. I enjoyed it all. July 6th. I wish to meet the facts of life, the vital facts, which are the phenomena or actuality the gods meant to show us.
And think of it, he's trying to penetrate to the deeper truths of existence. We have the set beliefs that most people believe, and then we have the people that truly understand things, the people that truly just read between the lines and are able to get to a much more holistic experience. And I know we all have examples of people that there's just something about them where they just understand things at another level. They understand things at a more true essence, and they have figured out life, and they're able to be happy. They're able to just go about things. They're able to just live their lives and be inspired. And I feel like there's a lot of traits that people look up to. Like people think ambition's a good thing, but I think that the capacity to be content is the most venerable quality in humanity. The horrors of disability and helplessness that one goes through, not being able to experience the moments that made life valuable, and how drastic changes affect people's. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the metamorphosis is, people talk about that one the most. It's because I feel like we all can kind of relate to it. I mean, that's really what makes any book a classic is that it hits at certain themes, it hits at certain things that human beings all go through, and it's able to do it in such a way that doesn't become preachy. Like you could read the Metamorphosis and you could just enjoy it for the story, or you could think about it. You could ponder it, and then you could get to the philosophical interpretations of it. And that's what I really love about Kafka is that he doesn't sacrifice the story for the philosophy. Like I'm reading the Space Trilogy, or I just finished the second book in the Space Trilogy, and there's points where it becomes philosophical and not a story. And I think I enjoy that too, but there's something about kind of almost how like Homer fills the Odyssey with philosophy, but it doesn't feel preachy. He feel like you could get anything out of human thought and anything out of human existence from the Odyssey, but you also don't have to. You could just take it for the story. And I really love that about Kafka's writing.
Life. Who knows what it is, what it does? July 7th. Tonight, as I sit by my door, I hear the far-off lowing of a cow. Why should I find anything to welcome me in such a nook as this? After the evening train has gone by and left the world to silence, and to me, the whippoorwill chants her vespers for half an hour.
And that's the weirdest thing because I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, but this book doesn't really like if I were to define what it is, I couldn't tell you. It's like half journal entries, half philosophy. Well, I'm saying half, so it's not all half, but like there's sections of it that's philosophy, there's sections of it that's journal entries, there's sections that teaches you how to grow potatoes, and it's like I love this book so much because you can't quite pin down what it is, but you know that there's something extremely profound in it. You know that you're getting a sneak peek into exactly what life is all about, and there's something so amazing about Walden, and I'll tell you all day long that Emerson's one of my favorite writers, but I don't quite think Emerson in all his prowess as a poet or essayist, I don't think he could hit to the same level of universal experience and universal truth that Walden did. And this truly is one of the most special books ever written, and I really urge absolutely everybody to read this book because I feel like this is one of those books that you can't not take something away from. If you really put your time and attention into it, you will find something. And what you will find is contentment, satisfaction, gratitude, and a completely new philosophy for life and a completely new lust for life.
And when all is still at night, the owls take up the strain like mourning women, their ancient ululu.
On most mornings, Henry got up at dawn to tend to his vegetable garden, including row after row of beans, an endless task, only made harder by the woodchucks that dined on the shoots.
Every morning was a cheerful invitation to make my life of equal simplicity, and I may say innocence, with nature herself. I got up early and bathed in the pond. That was
The reason why his father didn't feel like a burden to his family because he possessed physical strength. I mean, do you know about Kafka's real father? Because if you know about Kafka's like family, a lot of his writing makes sense. And like I hate to like read into his like psychological profile, but it really does summarize a lot of what Kafka's trying to get across because essentially Kafka's father was like this very like hardworking man, this very honorable man in the community, kind of built himself up from nothing. He was new money and he wanted Kafka to become old money. And basically live the life that Kafka could not live. Or he wanted Kafka to live the life that he couldn't live. So because of this, he kind of forced Kafka to become someone he wasn't. Kafka was a very sickly boy. He was kind of weird. He was kind of an outcast. He never could quite fit in. He could never quite find his foothold and live up to his father's expectations. And there's this very famous story of Kafka locking or being locked outside in the cold and maybe that developed his sickliness as a boy, but Basically, a lot of his writing is trying to overcome that somewhat Oedipus complex. But you knew about his background before his writing. Okay, okay.
It's a religious exercise, and one of the best things which I did. Renew thyself completely each day.
His morning bath he describes as a religious exercise, not just as some sort of random dunk that he took in the pond, but as a sort of ritual act that has suddenly a significance beyond itself.
Thoreau also said I needed to clean the house. So I took all the furniture out.
His background got you into his writing. Would you read his journals? I've yet to read his journals. Um, I've obviously read like excerpts that have like I've just seen in various different places.
And the furniture was happy to have a little excursion into nature. He said, I almost regretted having to bring it back in.
He waited till November to plaster his house. And before that, there were all these cracks where, animals came in, bugs came in, and the air came in. And he loved that.
In the afternoon, he often took long walks and made detailed field notes of everything he heard and saw. A practice
There's
he would
something common between me and Kafka. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. Because when Kafka was alive, he was wildly unsuccessful. Is that what you're talking about?
continue for the rest of his life.
Walking was a writing practice, a process of
I
taking
described it
notes.
perfect. I mean, don't we all like kind of struggle with overbearing father figure? I think that's kind of just like I don't know. I think that's kind of just common, especially nowadays, is that like you're supposed to be better than your father, and you're supposed to be better than your father in a particular way, and you're supposed to live up to the example that he wanted to live up to. So I think that's just kind of something that all fathers project on into the next generation, or most do. I don't know if that's everyone's upbringing, but
Notes that would become the content of his journals as inspiration would spark to turn it into a kind of larger mythology.
What
he wasn't originally going to take a journal. He really wasn't going to write this down and publish it until Emerson really urged him to.
observed fed what he would write about, but what he wrote about would also lead him deeper back into observation.
Thoreau filled page after page of his journal with reflections on nature and the human condition, often referencing Greek and Roman literature, as well as ancient Eastern texts like the Bhagavad Gita.
Basically, Emerson inspired Thoreau, he inspired Walt Whitman to read the Gita.
And Buddhist sutras.
He's saying all of these texts and traditions have something to teach me. Thoreau is taking his own experience and he's elevating it.
The vision of simplicity had been explored in Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism. But in Concord in 1845, I think it was something radical and liberating. So whether he knew those works or not, he inwardly...
Is that how you say it? How do you say it? Did I say it wrong? I know I say everything wrong.
rhymed with them.
Thoreau would find a way to incorporate many of these ancient teachings into the project he went there to write.
So if you haven't like put it together, a lot of like transcendentalism kind of just is Eastern mysticism. And that's probably why I resonate with it so much because I like the ideals, not necessarily the words, if that makes sense. Like the bare bones, not the rigidity.
A book about the trip he took on the Concord and Merrimack rivers with his late brother John.
He strengthened and oriented himself in writing. Writing was a way of being alive. that was deeply nourishing to him.
That's something Kafka wrote about too. In there's a story he wrote. It's called A Hunger Artist, and like I'm gonna spoil it, but essentially Kafka says that I wrote because I had to write. I wrote because I couldn't say it in any other way.
I am convinced that to maintain one's self on this earth is not a hardship, but a pastime, if we will live simply and wisely.
And really, that's the whole point of the book is that if you live simply, that's the true path to finding exactly what you want. I think Kafka was like 40 when he died, which is you don't think of as young, but it kind of is for an author because authors can write masterpieces well into old age. I think Goethe wrote. I think he finished Faust in his 80s, maybe 90s. I know he's really old, or he could have been younger, but I know he was old at the time when he was alive.
Throughout his stay at Walden Pond, Henry kept meticulous track of his finances. He needed to spend money on seed and other garden expenses, but he actually made money selling his produce. It cost him less than $20 to live there for the first 6 months.
The cost of a thing is the amount.
Perhaps that's the worst part. Like that's the worst aged part about this book is like the cost and how little it takes to go live on the land. It's just that I don't even think that's something you could do anymore. Um, there's all types of, crazy red tape you'd have to jump through.
Amount of what I will call life, which is required to be exchanged for it.
His goal is to remind us how much energy it takes, how much work it takes to make a living. But why are you making a living? Well, to buy these things. But why do you need these things?
His focus was on
It sounds so stupid, but like it's the little things that we never question that we just go along with that really kind of eat away at us because it's such a simple proclamation. You make money to buy things, but why do you need these things? And I think most of us orient our lives in a way where it's about the accumulation of things and we go into debt to accumulate things. And then once we pay off that debt, we want more things. And it's this never ending trap instead of, you know, doing something more meaningful. How do you get into philosophy? Um, I mean, it depends what kind of philosophy you're interested in. There's a lot of different kinds, but I don't know, probably just go with the basic stuff like I think really the easiest philosophy to start reading is Stoicism. Um, and it has some interesting ideas in it. It's not super complex. It's not something that's going to stump you. And then you could get into the Greek philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, uh, you know, Socrates through Plato's dialogues, stuff like that. And then just look up the big names. Yeah, you mean you have Hegel. Hegel's difficult to read. I started to read Hegel and I'm like, this is so boring. I need more attention. To read this, you have Nietzsche, you have Emerson. Those are not that difficult to read. You have people like Heidegger. Like I feel like everyone kind of says the same thing, but they just say it in different ways, and it's all just like semantics when you get down to it. So you know, just start with the basic stuff and then go from there.
how much do I have to work to secure my sustenance so that I can do what I really want to do.
Our life is frittered away by detail. Let your affairs be as 2 or 3, and not 100 or 1,000. Simplify. Simplify.
And that really is a lot of it. Like the more complex you make your life, the more things you have to do. Whereas if you live a life of simplicity, then you have time to relax, you have time to think, you have time to unwind instead of trying to constantly do things. There was a time in my life where like it was I don't even like describing it because it sounds so neurotic, but like if I wasn't doing something that I deemed to be productive, like I would like judge myself. And it's like maybe that's a way to be productive in a certain sense, but it's also a way to destroy yourself. Complicated is better than boredom. That's not the case. I think most people's problem is they can't be bored. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I look around and I see a lot of people that can't sit still, that can't, you know, think about the same thought for more than 20 seconds. And if you can't put your attention on something for a set amount of time, and if you can't devote any sort of time to that idea, how could you ever carry it out? Isn't everyone hungry for power? If I had the option, would I take it? I wouldn't, no. I mean, maybe I'm just different, and maybe I could just say this because it's not right in front of me, because you could always just make the cope that like, it's easier to say no to something when it's not in front of you. It's harder when you have that contract that says sign this line and you'll get $100 million, but you got to give up everything. Um, but no, I don't really want power. I don't really want things because there's nothing in this world that's free. Like if you have power, you have responsibility. Even if you're a good ruler, like it means that people rely on you and you have to take time away from the things you love to serve them.
I went to the woods
Are you
because I
talking to our
wished to
viewer?
live deliberately, to front only
Wow,
the
I'm not talking to
essential
me. That's
facts of
crazy.
life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived.
And I think that's something that a lot of people feel is that they live their life, but they really live it? And what I mean by this is that we all have those things that we never chase. We all have those things that we never even go after, and that's really one of the worst ways to do it because you didn't even know.
We all get lost in the challenges of everyday life. And our world has been set up to help you do that. As I understand it, the root of deliberate is from freedom. And it's to do something because you choose to, not because fate dictates it.
On some days, he simply chose to do nothing.
That's I can't even imagine that. And it's so there's something really important with this because I want you to think of like the most simplest form of our lives, and really what we were designed for is simplicity. It's not the complex structures that we create. There's something that, we're really missing out on when you could sit still and do nothing. Think about when you were a kid where you could just daydream and imagine and play in a sandbox and it was the greatest adventure of your entire life versus now you have to pick up your phone every 5 seconds and you put it down and you pick it up and go on the exact same app. It's there's definitely something we're missing.
There were times when I could not afford to sacrifice the bloom of the present moment to any work,
Stream IST.
whether of the head or hands. Sometimes, having taken my accustomed bath, I sat in my sunny doorway from sunrise till noon, wrapped in a reverie, amidst the pines and hickories and sumacs, in undisturbed solitude and stillness, while the birds sang around or flitted noiseless through the house, until by the sun falling in at my west window, or the noise of some traveler's wagon
And if you can't tell, there's like this underpinning sort of poetic kind of weight to what Thoreau
On a
writes.
distant highway, I was
That's probably
reminded
what I like so much
of the
about the
lapse of
Transcendentalists
time.
is that they kind of blur the lines of genres. At least one person here finds my content worthy. Thank you. Thank you. Whoever that person is, thank you.
I grew in those seasons like corn in the night, and they were far better than any work of the hands would have been.
He practiced doing nothing, which can be the hardest thing of all for many of us. He saw the beauty of sitting still, and he knew that if he just sat by his pond, reflecting in every sense of that word, he could find everything he needed.
He says that one of his job descriptions is to know the nick of time, to be able to notch it on his stick. He wants to be present. He gets down and on the ground to look at the battle of the black ants and the red ants at the pond.
And again, there's this idea that in heightened states of awareness, when you can really put yourself in this exact present moment in time, that there's something more. And really what I want you to take away from this is think of your best moments. It's not really, I mean, maybe it is for some people, maybe if you do feel this way, but my greatest accomplishments, quote unquote, are not my greatest moments. My greatest moments are always when I can forget about things for a little bit and just be present, be aware, just exist.
He goes into the shallows and he finds a way to pet fish. Try that sometime. You have to surrender to nature and nature's rhythms if you want to be whole. And you will see things you never saw before, and what you see will mean more than it ever did.
I mean, I don't even know what a good time would be.
What sweet
Earlier or
and
later.
tender, the most innocent and divinely encouraging society there is in universal nature. There can be no really black melancholy to him who lives in the midst of nature and has still his senses.
No, I'll try to stream at different times too. That's the thing. Like, I want to start doing longer streams, so they're just longer periods. But it is what it is. I've just been bad about turning on the camera.
While I enjoy the sweet friendship of the seasons, I trust that nothing can make life a burden to me. Here I know I am in good company.
All right, so that was probably. Let me just check if I got any warnings. I did not. Okay, good. This is a pretty good video. Here's this is by True Sage. I thought I was subscribed. I don't know if we've watched this one yet.
Faster, smarter, more connected than ever before. It's definitely faster. But are we really more connected, like Zuckerberg keeps telling us, when the world feels more divided than at any time in living memory? Is it smarter? We know more facts than any generation before us, yet we're drowning in misinformation and noise.
I think it's almost worse to have more information because there's so much you don't know what to pay attention to. Like, we don't necessarily even pay attention to the right things because at our fingertips we have so much information, we have so much good things that we could study, but instead we go to the drama, we go to the sports, we go to the political news that changes on a daily basis, and today's news story is the most important news story. Oh, tomorrow's news story, this is it. Like, I feel like there's this endless cycle of getting worked up about things that don't really matter instead of studying interesting things.
Is this living? Or is it a beautifully packaged trap? It's no secret we're bombarded with advertising and media telling us what to want, what to buy, even who to admire and who to despise. Take bacon, for example. A century ago, it wasn't
Edward Bernays did this, I'm pretty sure.
the breakfast staple we think it is.
Yeah, it was.
In the
It was Bernays.
1920s, Edward Bernays, the nephew of
Damn it.
Sigmund Freud and a pioneer of public relations, was hired by the Beechnut Packing Company to boost sales. He persuaded thousands of doctors to endorse bacon and eggs as the hearty breakfast of successful people. Within a few years, Americans believed it was tradition, when in reality, it was advertising. Thoreau did
It's so weird to see how much advertising affects us too. Like, I don't know. People sit down at the Super Bowl to watch the ads. Like, it's kind of sickening if you think about it. How much our world is driven by like consumerist kind of ideas.
didn't live to see bacon marketed this way, but he saw the same pattern in his own time. Society teaching people what to want and calling it necessity. So, he made a radical choice. To walk away from it all, build a small cabin by a pond, and live as simply as possible. To see what would remain when life was stripped to its essentials. But he was no hermit. He still walked into town, visited friends, and welcomed guests.
It's funny to think that Thoreau was fed up with like life back then. And we would think about this life as like, oh, so simple, so wholesome, so like connected to things. It's really interesting to actually kind of juxtapose this. Have I read The Vegetarian? I have not.
His experiment wasn't about hiding from the world. It was about seeing it more clearly. Before we explore what he discovered and why his ideas feel more urgent than ever, let's first meet the man behind them. And if you find value in this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. Henry David Thoreau was an American writer, philosopher and naturalist, born in 1870.
Even calling him a philosopher is kind of like he's one of those people that kind of like you can call him a philosopher, but like it's kind of hard to pin down what he is. I would think of him more as just either transcendentalist, which is philosopher, or just a writer in general. But it's more so about how he lived his life versus what he wrote. That kind of is the most interesting aspect about him.
In Concord, Massachusetts. He was part of the Transcendentalist movement alongside figures.
I think this is Herman Melville isn't really a transcendentalist, neither is Emily Dickinson. And I think this is Walt Whitman.
Like
I don't know
Ralph
who
Waldo
this is.
Emerson, who believed that truth could be found in nature,
This Thoreau,
self-reflection, and moral integrity. In 1845, at the age of 27, Thoreau began the experiment that would define his legacy. On a patch of land owned by Emerson, he built a modest one-room cabin on the shores of Walden Pond. For just over 2 years, he lived there largely self-sufficiently, growing food, reading, writing, and observing the changing seasons.
What I wouldn't give for this. Dude, to live in a cabin in the woods and just read all day, that sounds like the best life possible.
From this experience came Walden, part memoir, part social critique, part guide to living with purpose. And in his essay Civil Disobedience, he argued that no one
This is one of the main inspirations for Martin Luther King Jr.'s letters from a Birmingham jail. Because there's a section where Thoreau's in he's in prison for not paying a poll tax to vote, which is it's unconstitutional, I'm pretty sure. Well, there's probably ways around it, but he was protesting a poll tax and he wasn't gonna pay it, and then his aunt paid it and he got pissed off. But he wrote this essay kind of in response to the fact that average everyday citizens weren't represented.
one should passively obey laws they know to be unjust, an idea that would later inspire Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. But what was it about life in his own time that drove Thoreau to such a radical experiment? To answer that, we have to face what he might call the lie of modern life. Thoreau believed that most people, even in the 19th century, were living in quiet desperation, lives consumed by work, debt, and the pursuit of things that never truly satisfy.
It's so weird to think in like 1840 Thoreau saying this because we it's like do things ever even change? I don't
In the
know. In some ways yes, in
1840s,
some
the
ways no.
United States was industrializing. Cities grew louder, work days grew longer, and the belief that more possessions meant more happiness
I mean, this is probably why you see like a lot of analogies and a lot of similarities in the writings of William Blake or the various other romantic poets and the transcendentalists. It's because it's kind of a antidote to the kind of industrialization and the over reliance on materialism and that sort of set of beliefs.
was spreading fast. Thoreau saw this as a dangerous illusion, that people were becoming prisoners to their own comforts.
That's my thoughts on the book Thief. I read that in like freshman year of high school. I don't really I remember vaguely what it's about, but I don't remember it enough to talk about it. I remember liking it, but there's a lot of books I've read and it's just that was before I really started liking reading again because the school system like made me hate it just because of you know, how many awful books they make you read and oh, you have to answer these questions. Oh, you have to do this and it makes it into an assignment instead of something that you can enjoy doing. And it really takes away the point of reading because the point of reading is to experience things. But if you're, you know, reading for the sake of a test, then you're not reading to experience it. You're reading it to, you know, get set bits of information.
Working endlessly to buy things they didn't need. For Thoreau, the lie wasn't just that modern life could make you happy. It was the belief that constant motion, consumption, and connection were the same as living. Much of what we chase isn't even what we truly want. It's what we've been taught to want. We've all
That's a really important idea there that most of what we want we've been taught to want. And like I really look at my life and I really look at like 80-90% of the decisions I've made and it's purely based off of some ideal or something somebody told me or something I thought would make other people happy instead of myself. And it's not really the way to live. I mean, sure we have to consider others because we can't just like I'm not gonna go take someone else's property, but like why am I making decisions based off of a life someone else wants for me? And I really think that's something that we need to start evaluating and really start looking at our decisions and start leading ourselves down the path that we want to go. Novels are for the sake of reading and contemplation, not a quiz. Yeah. You want a less annoying life.
already seen it with bacon. In the 1970s, Nestle faced a challenge. Coffee wasn't part of Japanese culture, so they hired marketing consultant.
This is crazy to me. The level of investment that goes behind marketing campaigns. It will never cease to amaze me how much people just want to make more money.
Clotaire Rapaille, who recommended a bold approach. Introduced the taste of coffee to children long before they were old enough to drink it. Nestlé launched coffee-flavored sweets, making the flavor feel familiar and even comforting. By the time those children grew up, coffee no longer felt foreign. Within a generation, Japan had become one of the world's largest coffee markets.
This is like such a weird, like, I see so many companies do things like this, and like, you'll hear like all sorts of like success stories like this, but like, there's a lot that fail. There's a lot of campaigns, like the whole new Coke campaign about how they were making a new flavor of Coke to replace the old one, and it was like there's all these marketing disasters, and it's weird. Vito wants a full head of hair. Yes, I do, for sure.
I find these stories quite intriguing and some even shocking. If you know about any stories like these,
How'd you how'd you how'd you get to the true The true reason I do this so that I can go to Turkey.
Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear them. So Thoreau's warning becomes clear. If our tastes can be manufactured, so can our lives. His remedy was simple, but it asked something most people aren't willing to give: the courage to live deliberately.
The courage to live deliberately. It's a very good way of saying it. And there's this Gurdjieff has this idea of intentional suffering. It's not necessarily suffering in the way that you think it is, but it's just facing life's difficulty, facing the difficult task of being aware of yourself and being aware of where your attention is going and observing it and controlling it and doing the difficult work to understand yourself so that you can control yourself so that you're no longer being controlled by the world.
I went to the woods, Thoreau wrote, because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. For him, this meant reducing life to what mattered most: food, shelter, honest work, time to think. Everything else was either a luxury or a distraction. He built his cabin for about $28, roughly a month's rent in Boston, grew beans and potatoes, spent hours walking in the woods, and recorded the rhythms of the natural world.
This sounds so. This just sounds so amazing.
This was not about rejecting all comfort or society. The point wasn't isolation, it was intention. He learned that simplicity is a form of freedom.
Watch Diogenes.
The
That's your
fewer
first good
possessions,
idea,
commitments, and manufactured wants you carry, the more space you have for what truly matters. He learned that true wealth isn't measured by what you own. A man is rich, he wrote, in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. Nature, too, became one of his greatest teachers. The turning of the seasons,
I really see a lot of analogies between Taoism and Transcendentalism.
stillness of the pond, the slow growth of his bean field, all reminded him that life has its own rhythms, often out of step with human urgency. And his time in the woods deepened his belief in resisting conformity. Whether it was the pull of fashion, the demand to work endlessly for unnecessary comforts, or the pressure to accept unjust laws, Thoreau believed that integrity sometimes meant standing apart from the crowd. And simplicity for Thoreau wasn't just material, it was also spiritual.
It's about essentially just eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired. That's really what Thoreau means when simplicity. It's not getting too high, not getting too low. It's those little sayings that hold so much just depth to them.
Each morning at Walden, he turned to a text that connected him to something far older than America itself. Thoreau's time at Walden was not only about chopping wood and growing beans, it was also about nourishing the mind. One of his greatest sources of inspiration was the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Hindu scripture.
Who's to be blamed? Adam or Eve or the snake? I mean, I don't think anybody should be blamed. I think that's the entire point of the story. Like, I don't like the idea that original sin's a bad thing because it's the only thing that gives life meaning. Like, if there was no original sin, then there's no capacity to do wrong, and if there's no capacity to do wrong, then we're perfect beings. So what's the point? That's the whole point of the story. Hold on, I'll be right back. Give me a minute. It's good I don't have to read this. What what did I miss? Yeah, I went to meditate. You were annoying me too much. I had to go meditate.
I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, he wrote in Walden, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. What he found in its pages was a call to live with detachment, simplicity, and integrity. To measure life not by possessions but by truth. It echoed his own experiment. To strip away the non-essential and ask, what does it really mean to live? And from those mornings of reflection, joined with the work of his hands.
And then we get back to this idea of boredom too. We get back to this idea that it's in the little moments where we find everything. And we're so divorced from this idea of boredom that we can't find these things. You know, you haven't sat with yourself long enough to even think deeply. You haven't been away from the TV, you haven't been away from your phone, you haven't been away from the hustle bustle, the responsibility of things to even think, to even be aware of yourself, be aware of other things, be aware of the world as a whole. And that's why we get this cathartic experience when we go back into nature, is because it brings us back to our roots. It brings us back to our simple, humble beginnings.
Thoreau carried away more than journals. He carried a philosophy of life, lessons that still challenge us today. Every so often, someone tries this again. In 2006, writer Colin Beavan tried a modern version of Thoreau's question. He called it No Impact Man. A year in Manhattan, attempting to cut his
This guy, there's a book, it's called Into the Wild. I didn't know it was based off a real story. I thought it was like fictional, but a guy tried to do it and it's like a sad ending. If I become famous, can you have half my money? I don't think you're gonna have half of nothing, so no. Simply because of that, I gotta say no.
family's net environmental impact to zero. No elevators, no disposable packaging, no takeout or motorized transport. Local, seasonal food. Evenings by candlelight. He wasn't preaching purity.
I don't know why you would try to do this in the city, though. Like, I feel like the whole point is to go out in nature, not to live on top of each other, not to be part of the system of the rat race.
He was testing how much of necessity is just habit, and whether less might actually feel like more. Like Thoreau, he didn't withdraw from life. He reframed it. From a pond in 1845 to a high-rise in 2006, the question hasn't changed. What does it mean to live deliberately? To live deliberately, for Thoreau, was to stop moving on autopilot. It meant slowing down enough to ask, why am I doing this? Do I really need this? Does it bring me closer to the life I want? Do I need another pair of shoes to impress someone who doesn't even notice? Does picking up my phone first thing in the morning...
How long will it take for my hair to grow back? I think it's gonna take like, I don't know, I think I have to be reincarnated at this point. That's my only hope.
and doom scrolling help me? Does getting into debt to buy something that makes me happy for only a moment make sense? We live in an age where rest is treated as laziness and consumption is sold as identity. The average person now spends more than 6 hours a day on digital media. Yet much of it leaves us more distracted and anxious than fulfilled.
That's the thing too. It's like we want to get updates, and the more we want updates, the more distracted we feel, the worse we feel. Like I don't enjoy social media anymore. It's just like a bad habit. I don't enjoy watching TV. It's just I don't like sitting in silence. Like It's almost like it's like a drug. It's almost like it's just a compulsion.
Thoreau's call to simplify isn't nostalgia for a lost age. It's a blueprint for taking back control. Whether that means a digital detox, the slow living movement, minimalism, or sustainable living. He believed that true wealth was measured not by what you own, but by how much of your life you can truly call your own. Which leaves us with a
There's a actually decent business book that says that. Let me pull it out. I was like stuck in my shelf. The Psychology of Money says that though. There's very few like business books that I'll recommend. This is one of them. But that's like really like the central idea of the book is that treat your money like your time, like your freedom. And when you do that, then you make smarter financial decisions and you do things in a more balanced and realistic way. Yeah, I mean I hate business, but like saying I hate something and then saying I like if I say I hate something, it doesn't mean I like turn off to all the stuff. But you know, like I don't like certain subjects, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna ever pick up anything in it.
question Thoreau would still ask today. Are we living deliberately or just
Real
living
Rich
by
Dad Bad.
default? So,
Dude,
is
that book
modern
is like the fact that that book sold so many like copies. Like it's like one of the most generic books ever. That's probably why. But like it's like okay. Like the only good thing about that book is it probably came out in like the 80s or 90s when people didn't think as much about entrepreneurship and that kind of stuff. Maybe they did more. I don't know. But like now, like there's so many books about entrepreneurship and it's kind of just a cringy thing to say. Like when somebody says they're an entrepreneur, generally I'm like, okay, how are you scamming people? Like that's unfortunately what it's become. I need to sell combs to bald people. Yes. I'll sell like special like combs with like they'll have like tiny little like bristles that can really get to the root of your hair.
life a lie? Maybe not in the sense of a deliberate deception, but it can be an unexamined story we tell ourselves. That faster is better, that more is richer, that convenience is worth any cost. Thoreau's 2 years at Walden were not an escape from life. They were a search for it. He wanted to know what remained when you strip away everything you're told to want. His lesson isn't that we should all move to the woods. It's that we should consciously choose how we live.
That's probably the thing that people miss the most about, Emerson and Thoreau and Walt Whitman is they're not really telling you to go and physically be in the woods. They're just telling you to be more attentive, to understand yourself deeper, to really look at your life, to really examine things. And for them, it was going and living amongst nature. For them, that was the thing that brought them back to themselves. But it's more so just to focus, to be aware, to know who you are and to know thyself, as the Greeks would say.
What we value and how we spend our time. Because time is the one thing we can never earn back. As he wrote, rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth.
He's talking about truth of life, the secrets of life, the secrets of existence, the meaning of everything.
So maybe the better question is, what would your own Walden look like? If you found value in this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And join us on our journey of discovering.
All right, I have this video.
William Blake was an English poet and visionary.
Doesn't look like we watched this because I like these videos when we watch them. We'll go through this a little bit. I don't know how long I want to stay on the stream. I mean to say, we've only been going for an hour though, so I'll go a little bit longer. I should retire to the woods. Yes, I should.
artist born in 1757, whose unique work gives us a glimpse into an entirely different world. His art was ignored and neglected, and few people took his work seriously. He was generally seen as a madman. Today he's recognized as the most spiritual of artists and an important poet in English literature, while most
I would have to say he's like top three of my favorite poets. It's really hard to like narrow it down because I think with poetry it's just like so much of it is just like what am I feeling today and what kind of emotions do I want to evoke? Like if I want to laugh and cry at the same time, I'll read Khalil Gibran. If I want to be inspired, I'll read William Blake. Or if I want simple, profound beauty, I'll read Rilke or Walt Whitman.
artists sought to develop art based on the external world, Blake decided to develop the inner world. Throughout his life he remained mostly in solitude. He refused to compromise with society and was known for his eccentric behavior. He wrote, "That I can alone carry on my visionary studies in London unannoyed, and that I may converse with my friends in eternity, see visions, dream dreams, and prophecy, and speak parables unobserved and at liberty from the doubts of other mortals." His vivid imagination, visions, and mystical experiences led him to a spiritual task that was the exploration of his inner self. We don't live in reality, we live in what we think reality is. At the age of 4, he saw God put his head to the window, which sent him screaming. As a young boy,
Blake 100% would like be seen as crazy today. And it's like so funny to like look back on him and like hear these stories because like if you saw the things he was writing and if you were hearing these stories, I think he'd be dismissed. But because he's not alive anymore, I feel like he kind of has that. Uh, it's like when a painter dies, their works become more valuable. It's the same sort of thing.
he would read the Bible, which remained a key source of inspiration for his works. He saw visions, mostly of angelic figures, and told his parents about them, such as a tree filled with angels, bright angelic wings bespangling every bough like stars. Blake experienced visions throughout his life. He had little formal education and was homeschooled by his
I'm pretty sure really the only book he ever read was the Bible, and I know he read other books because I know he very much studied Dante for a very long time. Like his final years, he taught himself Italian or Tuscan. He taught himself Tuscan so that he could read Dante and start drawing all of the scenes of the Inferno and Paradise and
parents. He'd later write, "Thank God I was never sent to school to be flogged into following the style of a fool." He would frequently read the Bible, the works of Shakespeare, Milton, Dante, etc.
he loved Milton too. He wrote an entire work kind of mythologizing Milton. What's true, New or Old Testament? I mean, it depends what religion you follow.
Artistic ability became evident, and his parents decided to send him to drawing school at the age of 10. Here he became inspired by the works of Michelangelo and Raphael. He started writing poetry between the ages of 11 and 12. He needed to find a career, and at the age of 14,
next time? What does that mean? Like, I mean, I can try to stream later or earlier if that's what you want, but I mean,
Blake became an engraver's apprentice for 7 years, creating illustrations of other people's work and receiving a small
yeah, tell everyone to tune into my channel. If they want to fall asleep, I'll help them.
sum of money in return. After his apprenticeship had ended, he briefly attended the Royal Academy of Arts in London, but soon dropped out as he felt that his imagination was being weakened by academia, and his teachers showed little interest in his work. He set out to follow his imaginative mind, while making a
I can see Blake being completely dismissed. Like, it really makes sense because you read his writing and it's so out there, it's so unique, it's so him that like a lot of those kind of visionary styles they're not appreciated until much later. There's very few artists in any genre that do something that's so unique that is ever realized during its time.
his living from illustrating books, giving drawing lessons, and engraving designs made by other artists. in 1782, while speaking of his recovery from a relationship where his marriage proposal was rejected, a woman by the name of Catherine Boucher listened and pitied him from her heart. He told her, "Do you pity me?" She responded in the affirmative, and he replied, "Then I love you." They married and began their lifelong relationship together. He taught her how to read and write, arts which few uneducated women ever succeeded in attaining. She proved to be an invaluable partner and supported him in his visions, as well as helping him with his art. Blake saw the effects of the Enlightenment take place. The physical world became increasingly dominated by science, and
Blake's known as a romantic poet, which is essentially just return to some sort of spirit, some sort of depth, some sort of soul, return to the old way of things. It's kind of an antidote to the Enlightenment's kind of scientific view of the world, and just that's why he's classified as a romantic poet. I don't really think he has much in common with the other ones, but it's really just more so what he's writing in response to, because a lot of Blake's writings are focused on the idea that this like scientific kind of determinist way of seeing the world is limiting man in his capacity. And really, to Blake, the antidote to these forces is creativity.
the inner world by rational thinking. Rational empiricism was a philosophy that looked to the material world for evidence of God's existence. Blake calls this single vision, the world observed merely in a cold, calculated, and unimaginative way. There's no room for subjectivity. This is the poorest of visions, where we rely purely on our concrete physical senses. Blake's idea of the fall is different from Christianity, which understands the fall of man as Adam and Eve's disobedience of God's command not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Blake understands the fall as caused by us human beings, by our lack of imaginative freedom. Twofold vision.
There's a lot of analogies between Blake and mysticism too, which is kind of weird because there's not really evidence that Blake ever was part of any order or had any connection to any of the Gnostics. It's a weird kind of thing. What's
On
the
the other,
next best after the Metamorphosis? Probably The Trial. The Trial's my favorite Kafka work. But if you're looking for short stories, In the Penal Colony is pretty good. A Hunger Artist is good. Uh, I think it's called The Judgment. It's either Judgment or The Judgment. Uh, I'm trying to think. Those are the ones that are on the top of my head. There are more audience members than hairs in my head. Yes. I should I should ban you just for that.
the other hand is that of subjectivity and imagination. This is how Blake sees the world always. He writes, "This life's dim windows of the soul distorts the heavens from pole to pole, and leads you to believe a lie when you see with, not through, the eye. It is to play with fantasy, like looking at the night sky and seeing forms and animals in the stars. This would occasionally lead him to higher visionary states. Threefold vision, also referred to as Beulah, is the peaceful place where all worries, responsibilities, and troubles vanish. A place of restoration and reflection, where the contraries are equally true. There's no life and are one. The pantheon of different deities are part of the act of creation of what he calls the poetic genius. If there's one true religion for Blake, it is the divine spark of the imagination. Thus men
That's really the key to Blake's writing. And there's a quote from Aldous Huxley that he made. I don't know if he obviously didn't make it famous. Blake made it famous, but I think more people know Aldous Huxley than they know William Blake. And he actually used kind of Blake's quote to inspire him to have the title for this book. But the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. And I think that completely summarizes Blake's entire philosophy and in his kind of entire message in all of his writing is that you're seeing the world in a set way. You're determining the world through this lens, and because of this, you're limited. But if you were to open the possibility to something more, then the world is at your fingertips.
forgot that all deities reside in the human breast. Some might find this as diminishing the importance of God. However, for Blake, the God within elevates our internal world, bringing that up to the level of the divine, which is something that we all can experience. Blake strongly believed in the emancipation and freedom of the human spirit in a time where the tendency was to restrict human capacity and the freedom of the imagination. He sought a spiritual truth, a truth that could only be achieved through introspection. He believed that we originated from a spiritual realm and were born as free spirits, but became imprisoned in the physical world. The only way to be freed from it is by going beyond it through imagination, which for Blake is not just a state, but the essence of human existence itself. In 1780,
Okay, so I don't know why I'm tired, but really, what he just said there that's important is that Blake didn't see a difference between our imagination and the expression of God, essentially. So that in you bringing your creativity to the world, you're fulfilling your highest duty, which is speaking God into existence, essentially.
1987, one of his
What's up,
most
Simon?
traumatic
How's
events
everything?
took place, the death of his younger brother, Robert, the family member to whom he was most attached to. He tended him in his illness and stayed close to him for a fortnight. As he watched him draw his last breath, he saw his brother's spirit ascend heavenward, clapping his hands for joy, as he put it. When his brother died, William's exhaustion showed itself in an unbroken sleep of 3 nights of duration. He wrote in a letter, "I know that our deceased friends are more really with us than when they were apparent to our mortal part. 13 years ago I lost a brother, and with his spirit I converse daily and hourly in the spirit, and see him in my remembrance, in the region of my imagination. I hear his advice, and even now write from his dictate."
I mean, aside from Blake saying he physically saw him, I think there really is something to this point that like when somebody dies, they don't really die because they're always still with you. They always still leave some impact on you. They always still, I can look at my friend who passed away a while ago, and I know what he would want me to do. I know the kind of guidance he would give me, so I can always turn to that. In my imagination, I can just think, oh, he would be proud of me for doing this. He would be proud of me for doing this. Or I can, think about my uncle who also passed, and I know, exactly what he would tell me to do. I know exactly the kind of thing he would say about whatever scenario, and I can always laugh because I can just picture the kind of jokes he's making. So it's like people still live on in your memory. Seneca said something very interesting, and it's when somebody dies, when you're experiencing grief, that grief is going to change into the happy times. You're going to remember only the good times. So why not try to experience the good times now?
In 1809, Blake put up an exhibition of his art, but hardly anyone attended. A critic called him an unfortunate lunatic whose personal inoffensiveness secures him from confinement. Some are born
He's crazy, but he doesn't harm anybody, so he's not a danger. That's why he's in society. That's the funniest way to say it.
to sweet delight, some are born to endless night. One day we are delighted, another day we have a sleepless night. Suffering and joy are complementary. We can't have one without the other. Fortunate lunatic whose personal inoffensiveness are complementary. We can't have one
Why can't I find this quote?
without breath.
Whatever.
Though he had gained a small recognition,
He gave a bad interpretation of the quote. The quote was basically, some people are born into paradise, some people are born into hell, and it's a balancing. It's not necessarily that you have a good day or you have a bad day. It's that we're all kind of given our lot and we all kind of have to live with that.
and group of followers known as the Ancients, he died penniless. It may sound like he had a tragic life, but he didn't. He lived right into his death. Blake had a real sense of joy about life, and would often sing and recite poems. He considered himself a bard, a poet-singer. A fellow artist wrote, "He died in a most glorious manner. He said he was going to that country he had all his life wished to see, and expressed himself happy, hoping for salvation through Jesus Christ. Just before he died, his countenance became fair, his eyes brightened, and he burst out singing of the things he saw in heaven." Blake not only wrote poems, but also illustrated them. He published
I like the plain text because it's a lot like, I think it's just the versions I have, but a lot of these versions, they do a bad job of printing. You can't really read the words, but I do really appreciate his drawings, and it's always worthwhile to look at his drawings because there is another layer to his art. There is another layer to what he's trying to say through his illustrations. He would do these engravings on like metal plates, and then he would put the ink on them, and then he would press them, and that's how he did this.
Published Songs of Innocence in 1789, which deals with the symbol of childhood and innocence. They are optimistic and celebratory. In 17
It's not about Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience is essentially about the nature of life and the necessity for predators and prey. This is best exemplified through the two poems, the lamb and the tiger. And the lamb is, has a nice shiny coat, and it's a nice animal and it just exists. And then the tiger is Blake's embodiment of evil, Blake's embodiment of cold and viciousness, and that you need both. That's really the point of Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. There's a million themes in them though.
1794, he published Songs of Experience, which are more pessimistic and serve as a counterpart to his first work. These are the true
Blake's very um similar to like Heraclitus or Khalil Gibran in that sense that there's always this juxtaposition, there's always this yin yang.
two contrary states of the human soul. The world is innocence and experience, suffering and joy. Seeing these views as complementary is crucial for Blake. Here are a few lines of his poems. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe. Blake observed the suffocating atmosphere of London after the French Revolution. Fearing a similar outcome, the freedom of individuals were oppressed, and everything was covered with
That's one of his most famous poems. There's a video of what the hell's his name? Idris Elba reading it, which is like I never I don't I didn't think you'd be interested in William Blake because not many people are.
darkness, terror, misery, and unhappiness. O rose, thou art sick, the invisible worm that flies in the night, in the howling storm, has found thy bed of crimson joy, and its dark secret love does thy life destroy. The beautiful rose, the symbol of love and femininity, is infected and corrupted by a secret night visitor, the worm, the symbol of death, decay, and masculine destruction.
It's just there's this endless cycle of birth and decay, and that's all Blake's talking about. It's just this theme of how we're all kind of just playing our part, and that without death there is no life, and without life there is no death. That's just it's just the endless paradox. That's really what you see in a lot of Blake's writing. They're secretly fat. I don't know why you said that, but okay. I think I'm gonna end it now. I'm like getting tired, and I don't feel like I'm adding that much. But nice streaming back. Thank you guys for being here. I will catch you next one. Have a good rest of your day.